Imagine stepping through a gate into ancient Rome at the height of its power. The marble temples gleam under the morning sun, massive columns rise above crowded streets, merchants shout from market stalls, soldiers march in formation. Everywhere you look, the city appears magnificent. Now take a deep breath. That single breath would probably be the first thing you remembered, and the one thing you wished you could forget. Modern movies often show Rome as a clean city of white stone and glorious architecture. What they rarely show is the smell. A smell so powerful that visitors from the countryside often struggled to adapt to it. The odor of ancient Rome was not a single scent. It was a living mixture of sewage, sweat, animal waste, rotting food, smoke, urine, and stagnant water, all trapped within crowded streets packed with more than 1 million people. Before you saw Rome, you smelled it. And once that smell entered your nose, there was no escaping it. As dawn spread across the city, the streets slowly came alive. Shopkeepers unlocked wooden shutters, bakers prepared ovens, laborers carried goods toward busy markets. Thousands of residents emerged from cramped apartment buildings known as insulae. The city seemed energetic and productive. Yet beneath every sound lurked an invisible presence: the smell. Many Roman neighborhoods lacked effective waste removal. Garbage accumulated in corners, alleys, and vacant spaces. Rainwater mixed with discarded food scraps. Rotten vegetables dissolved into mud beneath people's sandals. Dogs scavenged through piles of refuse. Rats darted between broken pottery and discarded bones. Flies gathered in thick clouds wherever organic matter began to decay. The warm Mediterranean climate accelerated decomposition. Every sunrise awakened not only the people of Rome, but also the odors produced by yesterday's waste. One of the strongest smells came from a source modern visitors would never expect: urine. To Romans, urine was not simply waste, it was a valuable commodity. Across the city stood public containers where people relieved themselves. Workers later collected the liquid and transported it to fulling workshops. There, the ammonia inside urine became an important cleaning agent. Roman laundries used it to wash clothing. Workers stomped garments barefoot inside vats filled with diluted urine, crushing fabric beneath their feet for hours. Imagine passing such a workshop on a hot summer afternoon. The sharp, acidic smell could drift through nearby streets long before the building came into view. For many Romans, this odor was a normal part of daily life. For outsiders, it was almost unbearable. As the morning continued, another layer of smell emerged from the city's animals. Ancient Rome depended heavily on animal labor. Horses pulled carts through narrow streets, donkeys carried supplies, oxen transported heavy materials, mules hauled goods between districts. Unlike modern cities, there were no sanitation crews rapidly cleaning roads throughout the day. Animal droppings accumulated everywhere. Fresh manure covered major transportation routes. Hooves crushed it into the dirt. Wagon wheels spread it across road surfaces. During dry weather, it hardened beneath the sun. During rainstorms, it transformed into foul-smelling sludge. Pedestrians learned to navigate carefully. One careless step could leave sandals coated in a mixture of mud and waste. The scent followed people wherever they walked. The markets of Rome offered another assault on the senses. At first glance, these locations seemed vibrant and colorful. Fresh fruit arrived from surrounding regions. Fish vendors displayed their catches. Butchers hung cuts of meat. Merchants promoted spices imported from distant lands. Yet preserving food remained difficult. Without refrigeration, many products spoiled quickly. Fish was particularly notorious. As temperatures rose, seafood left in open air began decomposing. Vendors constantly fought against time, hoping to sell their stock before it became worthless. Blood dripped from butcher stalls into nearby gutters. Animal remains accumulated behind shops. Flies gathered in overwhelming numbers. The smell shifted hour by hour. By midday, some sections of the market became almost impossible to ignore. Not all odors came from waste. Many originated from ordinary human beings. Rome was crowded beyond anything most modern people can imagine. Entire families often lived inside small apartments with poor ventilation. Water access could be limited, especially on higher floors. Regular bathing was not always practical for everyone. Workers spent long days carrying loads, building structures, or laboring in workshops. Sweat-soaked clothing. Dust clung to skin. The scent of thousands of bodies merged together in public spaces. This was not necessarily considered shocking by Roman standards. It was simply part of urban existence. Yet when combined with every other smell in the city, human odor became another ingredient in Rome's remarkable atmosphere. An atmosphere few visitors ever forgot. Smoke created an entirely different problem. Most Roman homes relied on fires for cooking and heating. Every morning, countless hearths released smoke into the air. Bakeries operated large ovens throughout the day, metal workers fueled furnaces, potters maintained kilns, restaurants prepared meals over open flames. The city often existed beneath a thin haze. Smoke carried the scent of burning wood, charcoal, grease, and food. In some districts, it mixed with sewage odors rising from below street level. The combination could be surprisingly intense. Residents accepted watery eyes and smoky air as ordinary inconveniences. For newcomers arriving from rural areas, however, the city felt overwhelming from the very first day. Perhaps the most unpleasant smells emerged from the apartment buildings themselves. Many insulae housed dozens, sometimes hundreds of residents. Living conditions varied dramatically. Wealthier citizens occupied spacious homes, but poorer Romans crowded into upper floors where sanitation was limited and maintenance often neglected. Trash did not always reach proper disposal sites. Some tenants simply threw waste into streets below. Food scraps, broken objects, and household refuse accumulated around building entrances. In dark corners, moisture encouraged decay. The smell seeped into stairwells and hallways. Every floor seemed to possess its own distinct odor, shaped by cooking fires, crowded living spaces, and accumulated waste. Together, they formed an invisible map of urban life. As the sun climbed higher, the city's drainage systems faced increasing pressure. Rome possessed remarkable engineering achievements, including famous sewers. However, even impressive infrastructure could not eliminate every problem. Wastewater flowed through channels beneath busy streets. Some drains clogged, others overflowed. Standing water collected in low areas. When temperatures increased, unpleasant odors intensified. Residents walking near drainage openings sometimes encountered powerful waves of foul air. The smell seemed to rise directly from the earth. Modern sewer systems are designed to isolate waste from daily life. Ancient Rome could not fully accomplish this separation. The hidden world beneath the streets constantly reminded people of its existence. Usually through smell. By midday, all these sources blended into a single overwhelming experience. Urine from laundries. Animal manure from transportation routes. Rotting food from markets. Smoke from ovens in workshops. Human sweat from crowded neighborhoods. Wastewater from drains. Garbage from apartment blocks. Together, they created the true scent of ancient Rome. This was the reality behind the marble monuments and glorious victories celebrated in history books. Rome was magnificent. Rome was powerful. Rome was innovative. But Rome was also dirty, crowded, and astonishingly smelly. And the deeper we venture into the city, the worse the odors become. Because beyond the markets and busy streets lies a hidden world where Rome's smell reached levels that even many Romans found difficult to endure. If the streets of Rome smelled bad, the public toilets revealed something far worse. To a modern visitor, the experience would be shocking from the very first glance. There were no private stalls, no doors, no walls separating strangers from one another. Instead, long stone benches lined the room. Circular openings were carved into the seats. Beneath them flowed channels carrying waste away. Dozens of people could sit side by side while conducting the most personal activities imaginable. Conversations continued as normal. Business deals were discussed. News spread from one citizen to another. Yet underneath the social atmosphere lurked a smell so powerful that many visitors likely struggled to remain inside for long. This was Rome's version of a public restroom. The odor inside these facilities was not limited to human waste. Warm temperatures transformed the air into a thick mixture of moisture and decay. Gases rose from underground channels. Wastewater flowed continuously beneath stone seats. flies gathered around damp surfaces, stagnant pools sometimes formed in neglected corners. Every breath carried multiple layers of smell. The sharp sting of ammonia mixed with the sour scent of sewage. Rotting organic matter added another unpleasant dimension. Unlike modern restrooms equipped with ventilation systems, Roman facilities relied largely on open architecture and natural airflow. On windy days, conditions improved. On hot, still afternoons, the smell could become nearly overwhelming. Yet thousands of Romans used these places every day. For them, there was little alternative. Cleaning practices often made matters even more disturbing. Most public toilets provided a communal cleaning tool, a sponge attached to a stick. After use, the sponge was rinsed in water or vinegar before being returned for the next person. To Romans, this was practical. To modern audiences, it sounds horrifying. Imagine entering a crowded restroom after hundreds of visitors had already passed through that day. The sponge sat waiting nearby. The air felt damp and heavy. The stone floor remained wet beneath your sandals. The smell of waste lingered in every corner. What today might seem unbearable was once considered entirely normal. Ancient sanitation standards were very different from our own. Even outside public toilets, sewage influenced daily life. Rome's famous sewer system is often celebrated as one of the great engineering achievements of the ancient world. In many ways, that praise is deserved. Massive channels carried wastewater beneath the city. Some tunnels were large enough for people to enter. Others transported runoff toward the nearby river. But engineering could not eliminate odor. Open drains appeared along streets. Wastewater sometimes moved through visible channels. Residents frequently encountered unpleasant smells escaping from underground passages. The system reduced flooding and improved urban management. It did not create a fresh-smelling city. Instead, it relocated much of the problem beneath people's feet, where it continued to announce its presence through foul air. Near some drainage outlets, the smell intensified dramatically. Imagine walking along a busy street when a sudden wave of foul air strikes your face. The source is invisible at first. Then you notice a dark opening near the road. Warm air drifts upward from below. It carries the scent of sewage that has traveled through countless homes, workshops, markets, and public facilities. Residents often became accustomed to these odors. Visitors rarely did. Ancient writers occasionally complained about unpleasant conditions within the city, suggesting that not everyone accepted them without frustration. Even in a world accustomed to strong smells, certain locations gained reputations for being particularly offensive. Some corners of Rome were simply avoided whenever possible. The river itself became another source of odor. The Tiber was essential to Roman life. It supplied transportation routes, it supported trade, it connected the city to distant regions. Yet it also received waste. Industrial runoff, animal remains, discarded materials, and wastewater frequently entered the river. Near the banks, especially during periods of low water flow, unpleasant smells could linger. Fishermen worked nearby. Merchants loaded cargo onto boats. Laborers carried goods along crowded docks. All the while, the scent of polluted water drifted through the surrounding area. The river gave life to Rome. It also carried away much of the city's filth, though never quite far enough to eliminate the smell entirely. Certain professions endured particularly terrible working conditions. Among the worst were those employed in tanning workshops. Leather production required a series of unpleasant processes. Animal hides first needed cleaning and treatment before becoming useful products. Various substances were used during preparation, including urine and decomposing organic materials. The result was a smell so notorious that many tanneries operated outside major residential areas whenever possible. Even then, the odor traveled. Workers spent entire days surrounded by rotting flesh, chemical reactions, and damp hides. Their clothing absorbed the smell. Their skin absorbed the smell. In some cases, people could identify a tanner before seeing him, simply by catching his scent. Slaughterhouses produced another unforgettable experience. Rome consumed enormous quantities of meat. Animals arrived constantly from surrounding regions. Cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs passed through the city in large numbers. Where animals gathered, waste followed. Where animals were slaughtered, blood followed. Behind butcher shops accumulated piles of bones, organs, and scraps awaiting disposal. Flies descended in thick swarms. During hot weather, decomposition accelerated rapidly. The smell spread beyond the immediate area and drifted through nearby streets. Residents living close to meat processing districts experienced these odors regularly. Fresh meat represented prosperity and nourishment. Its production generated smells that many people preferred not to think about. Summer transformed every existing odor into something far more intense. Heat became the city's greatest enemy. As temperatures climbed, garbage decomposed faster. Animal waste dried and released stronger smells. Standing water turned stagnant. Food spoiled more quickly. Sewage odors became increasingly noticeable. What seemed manageable during cooler months could become oppressive in midsummer. Citizens sought shade whenever possible. Wealthier Romans sometimes escaped to country villas outside the city. The poor had fewer options. They remained among crowded buildings where heat became trapped between walls and streets. There the smells of Rome reached their peak. The city seemed to sweat alongside its inhabitants. By the end of the day, a visitor might begin to understand something important. The smell of Rome was not a single problem. It was the unavoidable consequence of a gigantic urban population trying to survive without modern sanitation technology. Every success created new challenges. More people meant more waste. More trade meant more animals. More industry meant more pollution. More food meant more refuse. The Romans built roads, aqueducts, sewers, and monuments that still inspire admiration today. Yet beneath those achievements existed a constant battle against filth and odor. And despite all their innovations, there was one place where that battle was often lost. Inside the homes of ordinary Romans, where smells from the outside world followed people through their doors and into every aspect of daily life. As evening approached, many Romans finally left the crowded streets and returned home. For wealthy citizens, home might mean a spacious residence with private courtyards, decorative fountains, and servants maintaining daily comfort. For most people, however, home meant something very different. They climbed narrow staircases inside crowded apartment buildings that stretched several stories into the sky. The higher they climbed, the poorer the residents usually became. Water was harder to access. Living spaces became smaller. Maintenance became less reliable. And as hundreds of people squeezed into structures never designed for comfort, smells accumulated everywhere. For many Romans, escaping the city outside simply meant entering another world of unpleasant odors. A typical apartment room was often crowded with both people and possessions. Entire families sometimes shared a single space. Parents, children, grandparents, and relatives lived together within rooms that offered little privacy. Cooking, eating, sleeping, and working all happened in the same area. Fresh air did not always circulate effectively. Windows could be small. Buildings stood close together. Sunlight rarely reached certain corners. The result was a constant buildup of smells. Body odor lingered. Cooking smoke settled into fabrics. Moisture collected on walls. Over time, every object inside the room absorbed traces of daily life. The apartment itself seemed to develop its own permanent scent. Cooking was one of the largest contributors. Most ordinary Romans prepared meals using simple methods. Small fires or portable cooking equipment generated heat. Food might include vegetables, bread, porridge, beans, fish, or whatever ingredients a family could afford. The meals themselves were often harmless. The smoke was not. Without modern ventilation systems, smoke filled rooms quickly. Walls darkened over time. Ceilings became stained. Clothing absorbed the smell of burned fuel. Residents inhaled smoke day after day, year after year. Even after the fire was extinguished, its scent remained behind. In many apartments, smoke became as permanent as the furniture itself. The problem became worse during bad weather. Rain forced people indoors. Windows remained closed. Airflow decreased dramatically. Inside crowded apartments, heat and humidity accumulated. Wet clothing hung from ropes to dry. Damp walls encouraged mold growth. Food storage areas became vulnerable to spoilage. The smell of moisture blended with smoke and human activity. A visitor entering such a room might immediately notice the stale atmosphere. Residents often became accustomed to it. Human beings can adapt surprisingly well to unpleasant environments. Yet adaptation did not eliminate the smell. It merely made people less aware of it. The odor remained as strong as ever. Food preservation presented another challenge. Modern kitchens benefit from refrigeration. Ancient Romans possessed no such luxury. Perishable foods spoiled quickly, especially during summer. Leftover meals sometimes remained inside living spaces. Fish products were particularly problematic. One of Rome's favorite condiments was garum, a fermented fish sauce used throughout the empire. Many Romans loved its flavor. The smell was another matter entirely. Garum production itself generated powerful odors, and even stored containers could release strong scents. Combined with other household smells, fermented fish contributed to an atmosphere that modern noses would likely find difficult to tolerate. Where food existed, pests followed. Rats were among the most common unwelcome guests. Ancient cities provided ideal conditions for rodent populations. Food scraps accumulated. Storage areas offered shelter. Cracks in walls created easy access routes. At night, scratching sounds echoed through buildings. Tiny feet raced across wooden beams. Residents sometimes woke to discover that stored food had been damaged. Dead rodents occasionally remained hidden inside walls or beneath floors. When decomposition began, a new smell entered the home. It was a smell impossible to ignore and often difficult to locate. The source could remain concealed for days. Rats were not the only problem. Insects thrived throughout the city. Flies gathered around waste and food. Fleas spread through crowded living quarters. Mosquitoes multiplied near standing water. During warm months, insects seemed to appear everywhere. Their presence carried consequences beyond simple annoyance. More insects meant more contamination. More contamination meant stronger odors. Food spoiled faster. Waste decomposed more rapidly. Living spaces became increasingly difficult to keep clean. Each tiny creature contributed to a larger cycle of decay occurring throughout the city. The smells of Rome were not created by one source. They emerged from countless small sources working together. Even sleeping offered little escape. As darkness settled over the city, odors remained trapped inside apartments. Mattresses were commonly filled with natural materials such as straw or wool. Over time, these materials absorbed moisture, sweat, and everyday smells. Blankets carried the scent of smoke from cooking fires. Clothing stored nearby absorbed odors from the surrounding environment. People slept close together because space was limited. The air inside a crowded room grew warm and heavy. Every breath recycled the smells of the day. For many families, this atmosphere was entirely normal. For a modern visitor, a single night might feel overwhelming. Fire posed another hidden danger. Rome experienced devastating fires throughout its history. Residents understood the risk well. Yet precautions often involved storing materials, fuel, and supplies within already crowded living spaces. Wood, oil, cloth, and other combustible items accumulated indoors. These materials absorbed smells from smoke and daily use. After years of exposure, entire buildings seemed saturated with odor. The scent of burning fuel never completely disappeared. Even apartments untouched by recent fires carried traces of old smoke. Every hallway, staircase, and room reflected decades of accumulated human activity. The city itself seemed embedded within the walls. By the time night fully arrived, ordinary Romans found themselves surrounded by layers of smell from every direction. The streets contributed sewage and animal waste. Markets contributed spoiled food. Workshops contributed smoke and chemicals. Homes contributed sweat, cooking odors, dampness, and decay. There was rarely a moment of complete freshness. Yet something remarkable happened. People adapted. Children grew up knowing no other environment. Adults accepted conditions as part of daily existence. Life continued. Meals were shared. Families laughed. Businesses operated. Rome thrived despite its smells. But after sunset, another transformation began. The crowded streets emptied. The shadows grew longer. And in the darkness, a different side of Rome emerged, one where the smells became even stranger, more unsettling, and sometimes genuinely terrifying. As darkness settled over ancient Rome, the city did not become quieter. The sounds changed. The bright energy of merchants and shoppers faded. In its place came distant footsteps, barking dogs, creaking wagon wheels, and voices echoing through narrow streets. The smells changed as well. Without the heat of direct sunlight, some odors weakened. Others became more noticeable. Sewage drifting from drains seemed sharper in the cool air. Smoke from thousands of evening fires lingered between buildings. Moisture settled over stone streets. The city felt different after sunset. For anyone walking through Rome at night, the darkness revealed a side of urban life that daylight often concealed. And that side was rarely pleasant. Nighttime garbage disposal created its own problems. Throughout the day, waste accumulated inside homes and workshops. Many residents preferred to remove it after dark. Buckets of refuse appeared in alleyways. Food scraps, broken pottery, animal remains, and household waste were dumped where space could be found. Not everyone followed official regulations. Some simply threw garbage into the street below. Pedestrians walking after sunset faced unexpected hazards. A splash from an upper-story window might not be rainwater. The smell rising from fresh piles of refuse could stop a traveler in his tracks. By morning, some waste would be cleared. Much of it would remain. Each night added another layer to Rome's growing mountain of filth. The city's stray animals became more active after dark. Dogs roamed in search of food. Rats emerged from sewers, drains, warehouses, and storage rooms. The streets belonged to them now. Drawn by the smell of waste, they explored every corner of the city. A discarded fish head. A pile of vegetable scraps. A butcher's leftovers. Nothing remained untouched for long. The movement of animals stirred odors from garbage heaps and drainage channels. As rats squeezed through narrow openings, they carried contamination from one area to another. Their presence reminded Romans that the city never truly slept. Neither did the smells. Near the poorer districts, the air often became even heavier. Crowded housing blocks trapped odors between tightly packed buildings. Fresh air struggled to circulate. Smoke from cooking fires drifted upward and became trapped beneath overhanging structures. Wastewater pooled in low areas. The smell of damp stone mixed with the scent of decay. Residents returning home after work accepted these conditions because they had little choice. Many had spent their entire lives in such neighborhoods. To them, the smell represented familiarity. To a visitor arriving from the countryside, it could feel shocking. The grandeur of Rome seemed very far away in these dark streets. Not every unpleasant smell came from the living. Death was a constant presence in the ancient world. Disease, accidents, and violence claimed lives regularly. Although Romans maintained burial practices, the process was not always immediate. Bodies sometimes remained temporarily in homes or holding locations before final arrangements could be made. During warm weather, delays could become problematic. The scent of decomposition appeared quickly. Most Romans understood this reality well. Death was not hidden behind modern institutions. It existed much closer to everyday life. The smell associated with it became one more element in the sensory experience of the ancient city. One that few people ever forgot. Outside the city, burial grounds lined important roads. Travelers approaching Rome often encountered tombs and monuments before reaching the gates. These locations were generally more orderly than the crowded neighborhoods within the city. Yet certain areas near burial sites carried unsettling reminders of mortality. Fresh graves disturbed the earth. Funeral processions moved slowly along dusty roads. Torches illuminated ceremonies after sunset. Smoke from cremations occasionally drifted through the air. The scent was not constant, but when present, it left a lasting impression. Rome celebrated life, wealth, and power. Its roads also reminded visitors of the fate awaiting every citizen. The Tiber River became particularly eerie at night. Moonlight reflected across dark water. Boats rocked gently against wooden docks. From a distance, the scene could appear peaceful. Closer inspection told another story. The river carried much of the city's waste. Organic matter floated downstream. Polluted water collected near the banks. Rotting debris sometimes became trapped among reeds and wooden structures. As temperatures cooled, the smell lingered close to the surface. Dock workers, fishermen, and night laborers knew it well. The river was Rome's lifeline. Yet after dark, it could also become one of the city's most unpleasant places. Perhaps the strangest aspect of Rome's smell was how completely people adapted to it. A citizen born in the city experienced these odors from childhood. The smell of smoke meant food was being prepared. The smell of animals meant goods were arriving. The smell of markets meant commerce was thriving. Even unpleasant odors became connected to familiar routines. Human beings possess an extraordinary ability to normalize their surroundings. What shocked newcomers barely registered with longtime residents. Rome's smells became woven into the identity of the city itself. They were not viewed as unusual. They were simply part of life. Part of what it meant to be Roman. This reality reveals an important truth about the ancient world. When modern people imagine Rome, they often picture marble temples, powerful emperors, and victorious armies. Those things certainly existed. But so did overflowing drains. So did garbage piles. So did animal waste, smoke, insects, and polluted water. History often preserves the most beautiful images. The less glamorous details disappear from memory. Yet ordinary Romans spent far more time dealing with sanitation problems than admiring monuments. The smell of the city was not a small detail. It shaped daily life, influenced health, and affected every social class from the poorest laborer to the wealthiest aristocrat. So what did ancient Rome actually smell like? There is no single answer. It smelled like sewage moving beneath crowded streets. It smelled like horses pulling wagons through layers of manure. It smelled like fish markets under the summer sun. It smelled like smoke pouring from bakeries and kitchens. It smelled like damp apartments packed with families. It smelled like rivers carrying away waste. It smelled like industry, survival, and human life on a scale the world had rarely seen before. Rome was one of history's greatest cities. Its engineers built wonders. Its armies conquered continents. Its culture shaped civilizations. But behind every marble monument stood a simple reality. A city of more than 1 million people produced more waste, more pollution, and more smell than anyone could fully control. And long before visitors saw the glory of Rome, they almost certainly smelled it. That first breath told the real story. Not the Rome of statues and legends. The Rome where ordinary people actually lived.